Bet horse racing on DRFTV. We'll match your first deposit of $200. Get free expert picks and past performances, plus weekly cash back. All from Daily Racing Form, the most trusted name in horse racing.
Hi everyone, David Aragona here with Craig Milkowski to take a look at one of 4 graded stakes races on Saturday at Aqueduct. This is race 6 on their Cigar Mile Day card, the grade 2 Demoiselle for the 2-year-old fillies going the demanding distance of 1.1 miles on the Aqueduct main track. And Greg, I think stamina is going to be a big question for a lot of these 2-year-old fillies because none of them had gone this far before. I think only a couple of them, or really just one of them, has gone 2 turns in the past. So we're going to see who's going to get the 9 furlongs, but among the stakes on Saturday at Aqueduct, I think this one is going to feature a pretty heavy favorite in the number 3, Julia Shining.
I think you nailed it about the stamina for a couple of reasons, not just the 1 1/8, which is new for all of them and pretty demanding for a 2-year-old. But this Aqueduct surface is a pretty slow course, pretty much day in and day out. So it's almost like it's even longer than what you're going to get at most other tracks because it's going to take longer to run time-wise.
And I mentioned that morning line favorite, Julia Shining, as you throw up the field for this race. I did peg her at 3 to 5 on the morning line. That might seem pretty short, but this is a filly that has a lot of hype surrounding her. No surprise, she is the younger full sister to Malathot, who did win this race. So we'll talk about her in greater depth in just a little bit, Craig. But I think that's one of the fillies that a lot of people are expecting to relish this 9 furlong distance. But it still is a question that a lot of them have to answer. Trips are going to be of utmost importance in this race, early position. So let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector to see where these horses might sort themselves out on the front end. And no surprise to see the stretch out sprinter, the number 7 Tribal Queen, shown on the early lead.
Yeah, I have no qualms with the pace projector here. If I was doing it manually, it would probably look very similar to this. As you said, Tribal Queen has basically been a sprinter her whole career and has shown some speed. So I do expect her to be in the front.
Now, one of the new features on DRF.com, if you're looking at our mobile PPs, is the new version of Timeform US, which we're rolling out feature by feature. And one thing that is a new feature in the new version of Timeform US is finishing positions within the pace projector. This is the finish projector, and you can check this out kind of toggling between the pace projector and finish projector. And Craig, you can talk a little bit about this. This is sort of a visual representation of the Timeform US power picks that people might be familiar with on timeformus.com.
That's the exact wording I was going to use. That's what it is, a visual representation of the power picks. You can see the finish line as opposed to the call we list where the pace is. We also do have one other feature in here, a little LP flag, which tells you the horse that we think is the fastest late pace horse on Timeform US.
And as you can see in this Demoiselle, the projected winner of this race is the number 1 Foggy Night, who's 5 to 1 on the morning line. And Craig, that's a pretty good place for us to start. We'll see if we like Foggy Night in our handicapping by diving right into her last race when she was 2nd in the Tempted, which is typically the local prep for this, where they run an Aqueduct. This is going the 1-turn mile, and that is Foggy Night with that lime green cap down towards the inside. She was no match for the heavy favorite Good Sam this day, but there's no Good Sam coming back in this race. So Foggy Night does make some sense here, Craig.
Yeah, she does make some sense. She's probably the top pick, largely based on her maiden win, where she won by nearly a dozen lengths and ran a nice 92 speed figure that day. I didn't like that she regressed a little bit speed figure-wise here without really any excuse. I think she just was second best in the Tempted.
I would agree with that. She is one of the only fillies in this race. I think the only filly, actually, who has gone 2 turns on the dirt before. She did that too back when she broke her maiden at Parks, winning by over 11 lengths. So maybe stamina not that much of a concern for her. She's likely to go forward from that inside post position, but may have to deal with the speed of another rival to the outside. Craig, we should also talk about another horse coming out of that Tempted. That is the number 4, La Vita Sofia. She finished further back and forth, and we didn't quite see it on the replay snippet that we showed, but she had some trouble that's not noted in the chart coming around the far turn. Her rider, the apprentice Jose Gomez, tried to slip through on the inside of a tiring leader, and she had to steady pretty badly when she got blocked in traffic, had to come around rivals. I thought that she lost all chance in that incident, and maybe that's why she finished so far back, but even taking that trouble into account, she's one that has to get faster.
She's going to be a big price in here precisely because of what you say. She just hasn't run a very fast race. She did match her speed figure last time, so taking that trouble into account, I would say she probably improved a few lengths just based on that trouble. Still, though, has a better way to go. And personally, I kind of think, not just because I'm looking at the speed figure, just from watching her run, she looked more like a turf horse to me. But that's not really much of an option this time of year.
We'll take a look at two last out debut winners in this race. The one drawn closest to the rail is the number 2 Royal Spa. In her time form USPPs, you can see that she actually did some running from behind on debut. She didn't break that well, was off a couple lengths slowly. It's kind of hard to see in the replays at Churchill because you watch a head-on visual of the start, but she did appear to hop at the start and break slowly, and she made up good ground after that into a race that did not feature that much pace, Craig, but she's yet another that has to get a lot faster.
She will, but she's one that I think you can expect it a bit. As you said, she definitely had some problems at the start. It was of her own making, as she basically lunged at the start, is a pretty good description by the chart maker, where her front legs were just off the ground when the race started. From there, I just thought she made a good, steady run. She was wide around the turn, so I think she's going to run much better than that 69 speed figure. The distance may be a little bit of a question, but I really liked how she was able to close into that very slow pace.
Yeah, I liked what I saw visually from her on debut. Not so sure about the quality of that field she beat. It just didn't seem like that was one of the stronger maiden races they ran at Churchill. But as you said, she definitely is one with upside if she can break better this time. And it's kind of a similar story for the other debut winner in here, one that's probably going to take a lot more money. That's the number 3, Julia Shining. Let's take a look at her PPs in time form US, or her last race, I should say, when she makes this looping move off the far turn to take over. And Craig, this was a race that caught a lot of people's eyes, given how it looked like she wasn't doing a whole lot of running on the backstretch, had to do all this work to get into the race, and she ultimately pulls away at the end.
It was impressive visually, for sure. Speed figure wise, it was just okay, but I don't want to hold that against her too much as a deep closer in a sprint race at Keeneland. Now she's stretching out to the 2 turns, much longer distance. I certainly have no qualms with your morning line. I think she's going to be every bit of that 3 to 5 because, as you said, as a sister to Malathot, she's certainly going to take some money. She has the interest of the bettors and the fans of the sport. And I have no knock. She can certainly win. My only real trepidation is the very low price. I'm not sure the race that we just watched is worthy of that kind of betting.
Yeah, Craig, when I saw her running in this race, I was expecting to be more against her than I ultimately can be. And we'll get to our picks a little bit later, but she just comes in looking as fast as everybody else. I expected her to come into this race looking a little bit slower compared to her competition. And based on that 82 time form US speed figure, it's just not really the case. She's one of the faster runners in here. And we have seen some horses come back out of that race to do well. The runner-up, Positano Sunset, came back to win, improving her time form US speed figure 6 points, her buyer number 15 points. So maybe that was a stronger race than it appeared. And she certainly ran a lot better than her speed figure would indicate, given that early trouble that she had. Let's take a look at the formulator fact for trainer Todd Pletcher about Julia Shining, just to kind of shed some light on how he does in this situation, because she is going to be such a short price. These are numbers that might give some people some cause for pause.
It gave me a little bit of concern. I don't want to get too crazy with it because, Todd Pletcher is a guy that just has tons and tons of starts. So I would say 27 over a 5-year sample. It's not a huge size to base a lot of opinions on, but 4 for 27, the win percentage is below what you'd expect from a Todd Pletcher angle. And the 1.09 ROI is really low. So obviously the winners have not paid very much, but that's what we're going to get if Julia Shining wins anyway.
Let's move 2 slots to the outside in the starting gate and take a look at one of the maidens in this field. Actually, the only runner in this field who has not yet won a race. That is the number 5, Affirmative Lady. And Craig, I get why Graham Motion's taking a shot in this race because, like I was just saying with regard to Julia Shining, it's not the strongest edition of the Demoiselle, and it's not like this filly has run that much slower than anybody else. Certainly bred to stretch out as a daughter of Aragate.
I would assume that's why she's in here. Her speed figures are right up there with everybody else, even a little bit faster than Julia Shining's debut win with that 85 last time. And haven't watched that race. She's one who not only is bred to go longer, she certainly ran like one who looked like she wanted to go longer. It's a little bit deceiving when you see that first quarter where she's 10th, 4.25 back, because 100 yards to the race, she was right up there on the lead. She broke really well and just didn't have the speed to keep up with the others. I liked how she finished off the race, so I suspect she's going to run pretty good in here.
I had that exact same observation, and I wouldn't be surprised with a likely slower tempo of this race if she's one that can be a little bit closer to the pace if she comes with that same sharp start that we saw from her last time. The other Todd Pletcher trained runner in this field is the number 6 Gambling Girl. We'll take a look at her race 2 back when she won the Joseph A. Jimma Stakes, going 7 furlongs against New York breds. And Craig, I'm not really sure about the overall quality of the New York bred stakes that she's been coming out of. She obviously got the 7 furlongs this day and finished up decently, but did regress going a mile last time.
Yeah, I went 2 back when I picked this replay for her, obviously, because it was just a much better effort than her last race. I do think she had some trouble at the start, though I do think it's a bit exaggerated in the chart comments. When you watch, the horse to her outside bangs into her a couple times, but it doesn't really look like it slows her momentum all that much. So I don't want to give her too much of a pass, but her last 2 speed figures are just as good as anybody else in here. But I think the big question with her is the distance. The 1.125 would be a stretch for me.
Yeah, I had that same concern, and given the fact that she's running comparable speed figures to some of the more lightly raced runners like Julia Shining and Affirmative Lady, I just thought they might have more upside than this runner who's already making the 6th start of her career. And let's finish up this Demoiselle field with the runner that's drawn all the way to the outside, the number 7 Tribal Queen. We already talked about her with regard to the Timeform US pace projector, likely to go forward from this outside post position, but distance is a major question for this one.
I would say, I mean, she was challenged once on the lead 2 back in her maiden race, finished well back when the pace was pretty quick. I don't expect a quick pace in here. That's why I think she'll be on the front, but she hasn't run all that fast. Her win came in and off the turf rates, which are generally pretty weak contests. And if she wins, I would imagine she's going to pay boxcars because she's not for me.
Let's throw up our picks for this Demoiselle. Craig and I going in slightly different directions. I'm going to eat the chalk in this one with the number 3, Julia Shining. She's 3 to 5 on the morning line. I'm not going to be surprised if she goes lower than that, Craig. There's so much hype surrounding this filly, but I was impressed with what I saw on debut, and I just couldn't find an alternative in this race to really latch on to. I wish that there was a little more meat on the bones in this field, but I defaulted to her, and I did put a long shot second, the number 4, La Vita Sofia. I highlighted the trouble that I thought she had last time, and just struck me as one that might be a little better than her PPs indicate.
Yeah, I have no problem with that. Julia Shining's obviously the most likely winner. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit, but I went with the other second-time starter in Royal Spa. I think she has some upside, maybe not quite as much as the favorite in here, but I'm looking for a good race from her. And I also went with a longer shot in second, a little different than you, in Affirmative Lady, the maiden.
Well, that's a look at the Demoiselle for the 2-year-old fillies on Saturday at Aqueduct. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.